tell me first, where did your love or passion for puppetry come from?
Well, I got asked like this question for many times. Yeah, some puppets just move behind me.
Oh my God, that freaked me out. Are you controlling that?
No, someone's controlling it for me. She's just
Oh
messing
my God,
around.
I love it. Sorry, keep going. I'm like gonna cry with excitement.
Yeah. So basically, when I grew up, because I was like the only child in my family, so I play along like with my toys a lot. So I think that's where I started playing with stuff that I bring life to an object, because I have this like robots, I have these like dolls, I have all these crazy things, and I like to like ensemble them and assemble them and then make it into like a new form of creatures, and then just operate them and move along. And that's how I started. Like I think that's how I started in love with puppets. And then I went to UK to study physical theater. So in my course, we spend a lot of time doing storytelling. And one of the things we do is using objects to tell stories, which means equals to puppetry. And then that's how I started. And then when I came back to Hong Kong,
What kind of objects? Sorry. What kind of objects would you use? If it's not a puppet, what else would you use?
well, we first started using newspaper. We use newspaper, we like twist them and fold them and make them into different kind of creatures, maybe just two legs. And then maybe I don't know if you heard of like bunraku in Japan. So it's a bunraku means three-man operated puppets. Yep, so it's a very traditional kind of puppetry in Japan. So we use this newspaper to go into bunraku, which is three-man operated. And then we started, because our teacher, she also teaches in Central. So she do a lot of object theater. So we have to use objects like, for example, newspaper, and then we made our puppets. And then we use, for example, if I hold this tissue, how do I make it look important instead of just a bag of tissue paper and just dropped it?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so how do you manipulate and use object to tell a story and give more meanings and give life to an object? And then
Hmm.
obvious, I do like mask stuff as well. I also do like aerial circus as well, and then stage combat as well. So many different kind of skills
I love
put
that you're
together.
like obviously I do, Matt. Like, of course, who doesn't?
Yeah, because that's what we do in that's what we do in our
That's what.
course. And because we focus a lot of storytelling. So everything is about storytelling.
Hmm.
We once we did like this Greek story, and we use the whole school. We decorate the whole school. I mean, like it's a 6 levels building, and we different room. Some room we use aerial stuff, and some room we do puppet stuff and stuff like that. And then and also because my teacher, she is called Lucy Foster. She is not just a puppeteer, she is also a children's psychiatrist. So she knows a lot about like how to communicate, how she knows how to improv with children and sometimes adults as well, and bring the inner kid from us. And then
Mhm.
when I came back to Hong Kong, I realized there were so few puppeteer in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And
Do you,
actually, yeah,
well,
yeah, go on.
because you studied in London, right? And by the way, I
Yes,
clearly studied the wrong degree because I want to decorate 6 levels of a building. Where did you study? This sounds great. Where did you study?
it is 15.
So here in Hong Kong, we don't have a lot of puppeteers. Is that because is there any education here in that space? Like, is there anywhere someone could go, or is it just a gap?
Well, there's like a drama school in Hong Kong is called the
Mhm.
ABA, but then they don't provide puppetry or
Mhm.
much about like object theater, that how you use objects.
Why not? Get on it.
So they're kind of like those traditional dramas who they have dance, they have like directing, they have acting course, they provide like really good acting course, but then they don't have like some other form of theater to train people. So in Hong Kong, there are actually less than five like proper puppeteers.
I'm
And
not okay with that. What if you have
yeah,
three people doing Boon Rapu, then you've only got two left. So it's not enough.
exactly. So there's only one puppet on stage.
This is not
So
okay.
yeah, that's what I found when I came back to Hong Kong. There's not enough puppeteer. And most of them, they are actually puppet makers instead of puppeteers. So they make their own puppets. And then they are from a like kind of art craft and like handy background. They don't necessarily perform or, to be honest, really know how to perform
Mm,
on stage with a puppet, or how to interact with a puppet. And
mm,
then that's why I started as a puppeteer when I was back in Hong Kong. And then after 1 or 2 years, and then I moved like to the backstage. Like I
mm,
trained puppeteers, I trained more people. And in Hong Kong, it's quite interesting because there are many performers who do puppetry, but it's like kind of like a job,
mm,
instead of they love puppetry and they want to dedicate more time and really want to train in puppetry.
mm.
So that's where I started
Yeah.
to go into backstage and train people to
Mm.
do that.
So, I explained earlier that you have this educational background of a certain kind of puppetry that, let's just give it like a sweeping statement, more Western, whatever that means,
Yeah, yeah.
and like more Eastern, whatever that means, more Hong Kong and Chinese style. Can you explain a little bit more about that? I'm using that terminology because of our previous conversations. What is a traditional Hong Kong or Chinese puppet for anyone who doesn't know, and what would another one be if you had been trained in London? Can you show us
Mm.
or tell us about
Yep,
that?
I can show you those Western puppets because I nowadays I made a lot of like Western puppets. For
Okay.
example, I have this character here.
Oh, oh,
Okay,
I
I
love
have this character
it.
here.
Yeah,
Okay, he got a big tummy.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, and then when I created him, I actually made that he can eat.
Okay.
He can eat because, for example, I have this object here. I don't know if it's big enough, so he can actually eat it and he can swallow it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then he can, if he like, so he can drop it out and stuff like
Uh-huh.
that. So
Yeah.
this is what we call the Muppets.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and actually, and I have this one as well, the one that just moved, that
The one
scared
that
you.
freaked me the heck out. Yeah, I love that one already.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
he says, yeah. And
I
when he
love,
got scared,
yeah. Oh yeah. Hey pal, come back. Oh hey. Oh yeah. I want to know when you're doing this, do you have a so like with that previous one, you said that you wanted it to be able to eat. Is there like a reason or a purpose when you make it? Do you have a specific audience or an emotion? Like this one's hiding. Is there a message or an intention when you're making a puppet?
yes, because when I made a puppet, I don't just like, okay, this morning I wake up, I want to make a puppet. Usually I made it for a show.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, for that one there over there, that just turned up,
Yeah.
he loves to eat a lot because the show is about eating. It's about dietary. It's about diet behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, what surprise can I give to the audience rather than just a puppet coming to life and then just talk for 6 hours? And then I realized, maybe I can do something with the mouth. What if he can eat? How can he eat? And can he eat a lot? So I have this pouch bag made inside in his tummy. So I can chuck tons of sweets and candy and all the food, even sushi, in his mouth, and he can eat them all. And then when I go to the backstage, I can just open the pouch bag and take everything out and then do it for the next show.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I create this character, I want to do something because it's up this when I do this show, it's about communication. So in communication, we talk about like how to talk, how to look at people in the eyes. What if a
Mhm.
character is very shy? Then he can just,
Be
yeah.
still my heart. And in your mind, do you name them? Like, I immediately want to give them names. Do you do that or no?
Yeah, sometimes I do. I mean, it depends on the show. And that's one thing about Western puppets. We build this puppet and they can be any character. For this show, he can be, for example, Mr. Robinson. He is a shopkeeper of a Lego shop. But he always, well, like because he has so many Legos, when the Legos fall down, he can just hide and protect himself.
Mhm, mhm,
And
mhm.
that's one way to create a character. But for another show, he can be Mr. Thompson and he can drive a train.
Yeah, yeah.
And when he needs to like really look tall, he can just,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
And
And
also
so
I don't know if it's intentional, but I feel like these are gender neutral puppets. I mean, you just gave an example, Mr. Whatever, but this puppet to me could be anything. It could be young, it could be old, it could be anything. Is that part of the master plan? It comes across
it,
like that to me.
well, it really depends because like, for example, you can see the red fish over there
Yeah.
behind me. People always constantly think, oh, maybe it's a she because
Okay.
it's pink or red in color. But
Yeah.
actually, when I created it, it's a he.
Okay.
So it really is, I think it's up to the audience or up to the creator of the show.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
how do you want to interpret the character and what do you
mm,
want to build from
mm.
it? And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the magic moments of a puppet. When
Yeah.
you come on stage, you can see the creature, the shape, the thing, or is it a human being? But you don't necessarily need to know the gender.
Mm,
Maybe you
mm,
think, it's a she. What if I use a low voice to come up on stage? You instantly think, okay, it's a he, and you
mm.
believe it. And because
Mm,
puppets is really down to the audience imagination.
mm.
And our job as a puppeteer is to help the audience to stir up their imagination and try to understand and try to relate to what they think.
I love that. It's your job to stir my imagination. What a great job. That's such a pretty image. Okay, and
It
then
is.
I have like so many stupid questions, so get ready. You
No
said Muppet
worries.
and we said puppet. For anyone out there, what's the difference between a Muppet and a puppet?
So puppet is like a how do I say? So let me put it this way. So imagine you have a cupboard, okay? You have many files inside. So puppet is the name of the cupboard, okay? It's a genre. So all the puppets in the world is called puppets. But Muppet
Mm-hmm.
is a kind which someone just mentioned, Sesame Street. So
Mm.
Muppet it focus a lot on talking. So you
Oh.
have so you have this creature or
Mm.
this human being kind of object, and then
Right.
it always has a mouth that can move.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
the mouth cannot move, okay, for example, it's a wooden craft and the mouth cannot move, it's not a Muppet.
I
So
see.
technologically, a Muppet is these puppets that you can put your hand in their mouth and operate the mouth and talk. So
Mm.
80% of the performance focused on talking in Muppets. And that's why Western puppet, in general, we always refer to Muppets because Muppets is always on TV, on the cinema, on the big screen. So you see them all the time. So when I talk about puppets, people get a bit confused sometimes. But when I say Muppets, they know, oh, the Muppet Show, the Sesame Street, stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's Western puppet. And back to
Yeah,
your previous question, what is the Chinese puppetry or the Hong Kong
yeah,
style?
yeah.
Because for in Hong Kong, we don't have our own traditional puppets yet.
Mm.
So most of the time we refer to traditional Chinese puppets. And the difference between Western puppets and the Chinese puppet is, like I said, Western puppet, they can be any character for any show.
Mm.
Okay, for example, this is Mr. Red. Maybe for next show it's Mrs. Red. Okay, you can change it all the time. But for Chinese puppet, once it's made, it has to stick to that specific character for its entire life.
Oh, okay.
until it's broken or you destroy it. So
Yeah.
you cannot change character, and it can only appear in the same show.
Oh, so it's more like when you write a play and you write a character, like you're creating a character, not a form to put a character in. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Ah,
So,
okay.
for example, if I made a Hamlet, for example, if I do a Chinese interpretation of Hamlet using Chinese puppets, I will make a Hamlet, okay? Maybe a marionette or shadow puppet or stuff like that. But then I cannot put this character into King Lear. It just doesn't work. You can
Hmm.
never do that. And
Yeah.
people, and I mean, like masters in Chinese puppetry, they are very, very strict about that.
Mm.
I remember because when I came back to Hong Kong, I followed a Chinese puppet master, Mr. Wong Fai, for about roughly about a year and a half to 2 years. So I followed him every day. Like every morning, I spent 4 hours with him, just learning all those techniques, because those techniques are much, much harder to master. So, and I remember one day I take this marionette, this character. Okay, it's called Lam Chong. I still remember it. It's called Lam Chong. And then I just messing around. I was like, I've been training for 6 months already. I've been training on this single character 6 months, and I got a bit bored. To be honest, I got a bit bored. So I think, okay, the master's not here. The master is in the toilet. So I just mess around. What if I use it to play a female character? And then I played for 3 minutes, and then my master just came back from the toilet, and then he saw it. He was not happy about it. So I got kicked out from the studio.
Oh, really? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's so
Yeah.
dramatic.
So
Wow.
I have to like came back on the next day, and then yeah, sorry, I won't do it again. And they are really straight about it, because uh and that's the one big a huge difference about Chinese puppetry and Western puppetry. Western puppetry focus a lot on improvisation, focus a lot on interaction with the audience. So even on Sesame Street, they don't have audience, but they have camera.
Mm.
So they talk to the camera. They pretend that you are in front of them. They are face to face with them, and you're talking to them.
Mhm.
But in Chinese puppetry, they don't really do any interaction. They
Hmm.
have a certain set story. They have a script. It's very like it's very distant, and there's a fourth wall.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
terms, and
Okay.
that's why they have these certain moves you need to do. You need to master before you go on stage.
Yeah.
There's certain movement gestures you need to be able to make and to create before you can do anything else. That's
Yeah.
why people like Chinese puppetry, those masters, they spend years and years to learn to do just one character, and that's
Mm.
why when you look at it, it's stunning.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna rapid fire ask you questions
Sure,
because we're getting them in. I have like 50 more and we're gonna have you show pictures. So, a
sure.
couple of things. Yes or no, was Sesame Street part of your childhood?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. I
Okay.
just love it.
And that's Muppets. And do we have Jim Henson to thank for Muppets? Is he the inventor of Muppets or is he just the person who made them famous?
I think he's the one who made it famous. Now, that's the thing about puppetry. There's no certain kind of history of who created it, because it was born on the street. It was born at home. That we, as a kid, we play with a doll, or we play with a robot, we play with a toy. We instantly bring life to it. We don't just put it on the table and look at it and talk to it and imagine it talk to ourselves. We manipulate it. That's how we
Mhm.
started. And then Jim Henson, he created the Sesame. He created so many very beautiful creatures and characters, and he had a lot of stories in it. And even nowadays, we study him. We study all his work, because it's a good reference of what is a good performance and what someone else created it. So
Mhm.
there's no certain, like many people believe, okay, Jim Henson created Muppet, full stop.
Mhm.
Okay, But actually, when you look back into history, there are some people anomalous. They create something similar, but he is the one who systemized it and define it. Okay, this is puppet. This is what we do. We don't do other stuff. Okay, we don't create a character with for example, feet, and then we 3 men operate it. Okay, for Muppets, maximum 2 people operate it. Okay, usually for most of the time, one person. Yeah.
Okay. Can we just be here for 5 hours? All right. Orla McGovern wants to know, can you talk to us? You mentioned mask earlier, and I want to understand the difference between mask and puppet. And just to frame this a little bit.
Yep.
And 2 things. One, if anyone isn't already planning to come, and if any space is open, Kevin Tomlinson out of Oxford, England, is doing a session with us later on communication skills. He is a mask expert, and he studied with Keith Johnstone, who's one of our fathers of modern improv. He's really, really great. And one of the things that I hope you'll speak to and that Kevin looks at is like how the mask changes the person and the character. So he says that we look at how the mask is the character, and then like we react to the mask and how people react to it. And I'm wondering if being behind the puppet as well, like the puppet's the character, like the mask is. Talk to me about this.
So in definition, mask is that you put something on your face or on your head, that you are using your body to perform or to communicate with the audience. But for puppets, it's always 80% of the focus goes to the puppet and 20% goes to our human body. Okay, that's one way to define it. But then at the same time, it's quite similar because you have half mask that you can talk. I have the puppet that it has a mouth. Okay, I can also talk. And yeah, I think that's the easy way to distinguish it and to between masks and puppetry. And to be honest, a lot of my work, I use masks techniques as well, because that's what I train. For example, let me take this as an example.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. For example, in masks world, we talk a lot about profile. So if you turn to the sideways, we don't see the actual features of the mask. We don't see the eyes. We barely see the shadow of the nose. And then we don't see what the facial features looks like. So masks don't necessarily work sideways. So you can turn maybe 45 or 50 degrees like for the angle. And then it's the same for puppets as well. So you can see it's cute. Okay, you got big eyes, got big mouth. When you turn to the side, you don't see much. Okay, you see, you can see the white side, the eyes. You barely see the mouth. You see it's talking, but you have no idea where is he or she is looking at right now. Okay, so I have to turn to the side at some angle. Okay, but I cannot turn to the profile, stuff like that. So it's all these techniques is easier. And when I train my puppeteer, sometimes I give them masks. So because they can experience it through their body instead of I'm just telling them, okay, I'm turning puppets, okay, at 40 degrees, but they don't have the tools to mention the puppets. So this is one way to train the puppeteer. Also, another way when I teach children, okay, I usually start with masks, okay, because the same reason, they can experience what's the feeling to live behind another character. Because a mask is a character, a puppet is a character. So we always stay, as a puppeteer or masked performer, we always stay behind the character and we live through the character. It's the same thing. And also, it's a great way to teach children how to respect another character, because when we put a mask, or we take off the mask, how do you put them? Do you just chuck it on the floor? Or do you put it on a table? Or do you, even if you don't have a table, you put it on the floor? Do you put it face down or face up? How do you protect the masks? And And that's a great way to teach children how to like treat, because you have just been in that character. So
Mhm.
which means that character has a life, has a heartbeat, has a brain, he has feelings. And you don't treat another human being, you don't just throw your friends on the floor. Then why do you throw a mask on the floor? Why do you throw a puppet on the floor? It's the same thing. They are your friends.
Mhm.
And to be like, it sounds cruel, but if you are a mask performer, or if you're a puppeteer, without them you are nothing.
Mhm.
Without them you are just another being on stage, have nothing to do.
Mhm.
And that's, I think that's why I think mask and puppetry, they are really connected, because although they are different form of performing art, but they share the I think 80% or even 90% of the same system and logic behind it.
Mm. Okay, talk to me about giant puppets. So here in Hong Kong, I was really lucky. What, last weekend? But a couple of different weekends now. You've been moving from small. Let's call these small. These are not miniature
Yeah,
puppets, but
yeah,
small holdable puppets. And you've been moving into really large scale stuff. So talk to me about the big stuff, and then I'd love it if you could show us some of it so people can understand what you're doing.
yeah,
And I don't want to give
sure.
away secrets, so I'll let you talk. Yeah.
Sure. So I also made giant puppets. It's usually is about 3 to 4 meters tall, and all the giant puppets I made, they also glow in the dark. So they are not just a massive sculpture. They actually can move. And when I create my giant puppets, I mean, like, I know there are other people that create giant puppets, and we all have our own styles. And for me, what I always think of is, how do I bring it alive instead of just a giant object moving, shifting on the street. Can it, for example, I created this dragon, so it wings can flap open, and then and also it breathes smoke. So I created this portable smoke machine and put it inside a giant puppet. So when it gets angry, and it just exhales some smoke. I'll show you a picture later.
Yes. Are you doing the engineering? Are you like both building the puppet, which is itself a skill, and or operating it, which is like another skill, by the way, not the same. And then you're like figuring out all of the logistics? Is all of this you?
Basically, yeah, I designed the whole thing.
Wow.
So how to say, I have this idea. Okay, let's say I have to create one character. I know I want to create a dragon, and then I start thinking, what can I do with it? Okay, I want to flap its wings. Okay, that's a great idea, but how do I bring it to life? So I start looking at things that give me inspiration. Then I found out I can use the mechanism in an umbrella, because if you think about it, an umbrella was started as like a stick. Okay, so this is my dragon, and then when it opens like this. But all the
Ah,
mechanism is in the stick. You can control it here. You don't have to touch the wing to make it open. So I got an umbrella from home, and then I just break it down, like what we do when we're kids. Okay, we want to understand something. What's the better way to actually get something and break it down and try to enlarge it into a new system? So, and
yeah.
I do a lot of like experiments of different mechanism, and then I kind of twisted it, and then voila, it's the dragon.
Yeah. Okay, can
So
you show us some pictures? Can you show us, please?
absolutely.
And by the way, Betty says your coworkers look so much more fun than mine. It sounds like her coworkers, unfortunately, are not turtles or fish. That's such a pity for Betty. And I just read some of the comments out loud. It sounds like people are finding this insightful and fascinating, and loving the interesting information about Western and Eastern puppetry. And
Thank you.
yeah, people saying thank you, thank you. All right, so tell us what we're looking at. What is this?
So this is before we go into giant puppet, this is another puppet I made
Yeah.
I think 2 or 3 years ago. It's called the Three Brothers.
Mhm.
So when I created this, I was thinking, I can only operate one puppet, maximum two puppets, but there's nothing much I can do. Can I get more puppets on stage with a minimum number of puppeteers? So I created this, the three brothers. So the puppeteer will actually become one of the brother in the middle. My
Mhm.
other two hands are operating the two other brothers. So I can
Mhm.
have like three characters with one puppeteer on stage at the same time. I can have three different characteristics. I can have like three voice and like things happen on stage and go wild with it. And that's just and that's one thing I created.
I love that
Okay.
one is like a hip, cool kid with its sideways hat, and one is a pirate. I love that your brothers are at such opposite.
Yeah, because I want to make these characters, they argue a lot. So they talk a lot, they argue a lot, and they will always try to separate and leave the others. But obviously, because they are stuck together,
Yeah,
so that created this conflict. They always want
yeah.
to leave each other, but they can't. They got stuck there, and it's great fun.
And you're stuck in the middle, right? It's like such
Exactly.
an analogy for life and stuff. I just want
Yeah.
to say as well, while I'm thinking about it, and to just draw lines for people, draw some parallels here. I feel like a lot of the work that you're doing when you're conceptualizing the functionality of a puppet is improvising. The fact that you're saying, how do I make the dragon wings work? Oh my gosh, an umbrella. Hey, hang on a minute. Let me break it and try. That
Hmm.
that to me is improv and practice. And I feel like that's what we're talking about these 3 days is how do we take
Yeah.
that present tense, that thinking on your feet, that being creative and put it in something. And maybe it's even redundant of me to point that out. It just feels like what you're doing is integrating multiple art forms in the one moment.
Yeah, I think so. Because when I created, for example, this three brothers character, when my initial idea is just bring as many character and as few puppeteer on stage as I can. That's
Mm-hmm.
all. That's period. And then after I created this, I tried it on, and then I realized there's so much I can do. For example, if what if these two characters just screaming next to my ears, and I want to leave, and then once I left, they realized they lost their life because the operator is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then all these little ideas, these stories came from improv. I
Yeah.
cannot just look at the puppet and then I can do this.
Yeah.
There's so much more I can do when I'm on the feet.
Yeah. Okay, show us the next one. I'm going to read another question. Do you draw inspiration from kids? I mean, you were a kid, you watched Sesame Street, you're interested in this, and what has been the most fun puppet that you've ever created off the back of a request? So not just breaking things in your house, but are you inspired by kids and what's the most fun one you've done?
Oh yeah, I mean, for my work, I always got inspired by kids, but most of them are down to the performance, not making the puppets, because uh, kids they're so innocent. They just speak anything straight from the mind. They think of anything, they don't filter it, they just say it, and then that's when the magic happens. Because in adult world, we can't do that. We can't just say anything we want. We simply can't. We were told that we cannot. Okay, the lines were drawn when we were kids, and then and that's one thing about puppetry is that when we look at puppets, they are kids. They can say anything. They can do
Mhm.
anything. They can tell all kinds of jokes that we can't tell in our daily life,
Mhm.
and that's how my work is inspired from the kids.
Mhm.
So yeah, I hope
Yeah.
that answer your question as well.
It did. It did. Okay, show me the next one. I'll come back to the other part of it, and I have more questions coming in. But let's see the giant stuff. So you said this is
So
meters high.
yeah, this is actually I think 4 meters tall. So it's the genie, and actually the palm, and you can see there's some lights in the palm,
Hmm.
and actually the face as well. I wrote a program, and then I can use my smartphone to operate it, and they can change color. So when they
What?
get angry, the face and the palm will turn red, and then when they get shy, it maybe turn a bit
green and blue, okay? And when it's happy, it turns yellow, stuff like that. So this is the puppet I made. I think, I can't remember, it's 5 or 6, I think 6 years ago. This is the puppet I made. And actually, that's the first giant puppet I made.
How long did that take to make? Just the making it, just making it.
For this one, it took
Yeah.
me 3 months.
Wow. And where, like,
yeah.
where is there enough space to make that? It's Hong Kong. I live in a 4 square feet box. Like,
so that's why when I made all these giant puppets, I cannot make them in one big chunk. I have to break it into like smaller parts. So when you look at this genie, so it can be separated into the head, the body, 2 arms, and then the lamp is separated into 3 parts. So when I get to the venue, I have to put them together. I have to spend like almost an hour just to put them together and make them into genie. And then when I finish the show, I have to take them apart, put them in the truck, and then bring back to my studio.
I just imagine that your apartment, King, is like a Mr. Potato Head or Mrs. Potato Head exploded of puppet parts, and you like go to have dinner and you're climbing over a genie head to get to your kitchen.
That's basically my daily life.
Yes. Okay, so show us some more pictures. What's this one?
So this is a peacock I made 4 years ago for the same event. So you can see the legs of the peacock is actually a human leg. So I created these shoes that look like a claws that he can wear on and then put on the puppets. And then for this puppet, the heads can tilt down so it can bow to the audience. And also what's it called at the back? I don't know what's it called in English.
The tail feathers?
Yeah, the tail feathers, it can open and close.
Ah.
So it looks like a peacock when you see like a woman wearing beautiful dress. He wants to compete, and then he will open his tail feather.
Yeah, and I see there's a little person there, a little person who you can see the scale there of the little kid with the peacock.
Yeah. So this peacock is 3 meters and I think 3.4 meters tall.
Yeah.
So a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
And then, yep, that's it. So you can see now the tail feather is closed.
Yeah.
It's closing, actually, to be honest, to be precise.
Do you, I know a lot of artists, when they are creating, they sometimes get to a point and they're like, I don't know when to stop. Some artists are like, I'm done. And some artists could play forever. I see that you have eyelashes. I see that you have all these beautiful neck feathers. You have the little plume. Is it just about the deadline for the client and then you just stop? Or like, could you play forever? Or do you know when it's done?
Well, I can, to be honest, I can play forever. I can change because when I make it in a studio, which is an indoor environment. And then when I test it, I can't go on street to test it because it's too big. So I have to wait until midnight and then I go to the car park of like a factory to test it. So it's a semi-indoor, semi-outdoor environment. But when I actually go to the venue to perform, it's a completely outdoor environment. And because it's a parade, I have to walk for an hour at least. So when I'm walking this street, the environment can be so different to the next street. For example, this street it's quite crowded, okay, but there's not much wind. So I can walk safely, I can walk easily. But once I turn the corner, boom, there's wind blowing, like I feel like I'm in a typhoon right now. And then I realize, oh crap, this doesn't work because the feather is too big. So it basically like a screen or something. So it caught all the wind and then it's actually blowing me backwards. So I want to go forward, but the wind is blowing me backwards. And then I have to think on the spot, crap, what can I do? Okay, close the feather. So it closes up, but then I cannot show to the audience. Because if I turn to the side and show to the audience, I have to open it. And then the wind caught again. But then because I'm on the sideways, the wind is blowing in front, blowing me from the sideways. So I will start spinning. And that's all the crazy things that happen on during performance. And then
Yeah.
when I finish the parade, because I know, oh crap, I know that tomorrow I have another parade. I'm walking in a different street. So what can I do to solve the problem that I'll get blown everywhere? So I had to change on the spot. So I changed the material of the feather, so it doesn't really caught the wind, but it still had the same effect. And
Yeah.
you can see here is actually version 3. So you can see between the feathers, there's this fabric with light on it.
Oh yeah. If you were watching, haven't already, on the top right of the image, you all can expand this and see it bigger. There's like fairy lights between the feathers.
Yep. So this is version 3. So in version 1, they were all plastics. So they caught all the wind. I have no fairy lights on it. So it's pure plastic. So when it's open, yes, it's beautiful, but it caught all the wind. So I cannot control my puppets. And then for this version, I change it into fabric. And because when I choose the fabric, I choose some. It has a slightly larger holes between fabrics, in the material. So when the wind comes, it will pass through the fabric instead of all the wind are caught on the fabric. So it looks similar. It sounds similar, but it makes a whole world of difference when you are in the puppet.
Yeah. Do you have any more pictures to show us?
Yes, I have just a few more. So this is the dragon I talked about.
Yes.
So yeah, and then you can see it glows in the dark. The wings can open, and now you can see it's breathing smoke.
I love it. Oh my God. Yes, please. Yeah. I'm zooming in to check this out. Does it have little like feathery kind of things beside its head too? Cool.
Yep. So, and then I think that's the show you saw as well, Lauren.
I did. I saw this owl.
Yeah, this owl. So this one works on in daylight as well, also as well as a nighttime.
Beautiful.
So that's another peacock I made, because for the peacock I made 4 years ago, I wasn't very happy about it because I thought the tail feather was too small. So I made it, and it wasn't as colorful as I thought it should be. So for this show, I created another feather. When you look at it, it's actually double the size of the original feather.
And if people are looking at this, the owl is on the right, and then also in the middle there, there's a seal which is balancing a ball on its nose, and then I see the elephant there as well, which the trunk moves and goes up, which is so fun.
Yeah, and also the nose of the elephant that also moves.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got some more questions coming in. One of the comments, which has already been hurrahed, was you were talking about that childlike curiosity and innocence, and how we get told like, no, don't say, and how we need more of that in our adult lives. To that, I say yes, hurrah, and come to some improv workshops, y'all. Have you ever done shadow puppetry? I know that at least in Indonesia, there's certain kinds of like these flat puppets. Do you know the ones I'm talking about, King? I don't know if other folks do, and it's used a lot in shadow puppetry. There's many different cultures which do this. Do you do much in that space?
Yeah, I do that a lot as well. Actually, there's a mall in Hong Kong called the Mills. Before COVID, I was actually doing a show, 3 shows per month for them. So it's like a regular thing. I do shadow puppets show for them. And and for shadow puppets, I do the Chinese style. I know there are Indian style, there are Pakistan style, there are Vietnamese style. So I do the Chinese styles.
Yeah. If someone is not in Hong Kong and they want to see your work, other than the beautiful stuff you've shown, is there somewhere that they can either watch shows or look at pictures or engage to find out more, to do more?
Well, you can always go to my Facebook page. All my work is up there, and because we just finished a puppet show. It's like a Muppet show, okay? But it's just finished in February. No, in 14th of March. It's just finished. We are thinking if we can put it online, but because it was funded by the government. So I have to really talk to them about the terms because they paid us. We're not allowed to publish it for free for now.
Right.
So we're just still like discussing the terms. And then I might have another giant puppet show in this summer, but it's a secret. Okay, don't tell anyone. Okay, so it's not confirmed yet. So we are still discussing about it, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do it. And then for next time, maybe I can do like a Facebook Live for the show, and then everyone can see it. That'd be great, I think.
Okay, so a couple more. One of the questions before was, what is the most fun puppet that you've made? Do you have a favorite?
Oh, that's a very tough question because
Choose your favorite child, King.
I love giant puppets because giant puppets allowed me to do a lot of experiments. And I am those people who love like mechanic stuff. And for Muppets, I can't do much mechanics, but for giant puppet, and the crazy thing about giant puppet is it either works or it either epic fail. And for example, the genie I just showed you, the blue thing, I was thinking when I first created it, I wanted it to come from the lamp. So I want to make the lamp open and the genie came. And then I thought it was such a marvelous idea. I'm gonna make it no matter what. And then after a month and a half, I realized it's a rubbish idea because if the genie has to come from the lamp, which means the lamp has to be much bigger than the genie. But once the genie came out, the lamp is still bigger than the genie. Then what's the point? The focus is still the lamp, and the genie is like this tiny creature. It's like a baby genie.
You need a shrinking lamp, like your umbrella is expanded. You need it to shrink somehow, right?
Yeah, it has to somehow shrink, but then it gets so heavy, the puppeteer inside cannot just carry it and walk around for 2 hours. It just doesn't work like that. And then yeah, I love giant puppet. And then actually, my most recent and my currently favorite character is this fish here.
Why?
Because when I created it for the show, is actually the whole show happens under the sea. And I have to, there's this scene, the fish has to come above water. But then I think, okay, if I create a fish, a normal fish, it comes above water, how does it walk? It can't. It will just flap on the ground like, it doesn't work. So I created this vertical version of a fish. Okay, but then I think, okay, if it goes back to the sea, how does it swim? If it swim, use a tail to swim, the face will be facing down to the floor. The audience can't see it. So that's why I made an identical version of it, but a vertical style. Let me show you.
Oh, fun. Oh, they're like twins. How cool.
Yeah, so basically, if the scene is under the sea, it will just swim, and once it disappeared, the vertical version just jumped out, like magic.
I love it. It's the Little Mermaid before and after.
Exactly, exactly. That's why it's is my favorite character because I just love it. I play with it all the time.
Yeah. Okay, we have to wrap up. We have 2 minutes left, and I want to do a couple of things. So Orla also shared some work from Ireland. If folks want to click on that and find out a little bit more, we talked earlier about the Japanese puppet style, and so I put a note in there, Bunraku. I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm sure Bunraku. If you scroll up, you'll see that, and you can look into the 3-person puppetry. I want to say thank you to everybody who shared their thoughts and their lovely questions in the chat. And if folks want to hang out and talk to King, they can find him on Rebecca's posted there, or they can Instagram banana_effect. They can also go talk to him at the coffee bar. Yep, there we go.
I have another Facebook page as well. So this is more focused on puppets as well.
Yes. And then I would also like to say, we had another puppetry session before with Candace, who joined us whatever yesterday means to you. So we've got a couple of folks who are integrating different kinds of art forms together. So I encourage all the artists to think about how improv could lend and, whatever. I love the intuitive nature, the creative nature that you're using. And I could sit and talk, as I said, to King for hours and hours about this. I have a million more questions, but what we're going to do is we're going to close here. I'm going to ask you for final words of wisdom and thoughts for anyone who wants to hire a puppeteer, learn puppetry, whatever. So think about your wisdom for 1 second, King. I'm going to tell everyone the housekeeping. We're going to go back to the floor plan. King will go to the coffee bar, attack him, ask him questions, praise him, tell him he's a genius because he is. And then in 5 minutes, we're going to come back for another session with the very talented and capable Sam Furness. And this is going to be about the collective build. So here we're going to look at how we collectively use our brains and go somewhere with our combined efforts. I'm not going to ruin anything, but I encourage you to join us, please. And for this one, we are ideally looking to have people share challenges, and then we will together find solutions. King, what are your words of wisdom? Blow my mind, please.
I think if anyone wants to either hire a puppeteer or even want to be a puppeteer, the key thing is about imagination. With imagination, you can do anything. I mean, even if you're on stage, you are improvising. You need imagination. What would the character do? What does it look like now? And what can he or she do? Or what does she say? And what's the feedback from the audience will be? And everything is about imagination. And because if you think about it, they are just objects. They are just a bunch of objects made from foam, from fabric, sometimes plastics. They are nothing without your imagination. And our job, like I said, is to stir the imagination of the audience.
Yeah. And I want to yes and you and say it's our shared imagination, right? The puppeteer has to bring their imagination and then we have to invest in it. So it's a job that we share, a journey that we go on together. Yep. King, thank you so much. Thank you to you all watching now or in the playback.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.